Hello, you are very welcome, I should say, to the Under Center podcast. The beauties of live podcasting means I can mess up and I can start all over again. I'm your host, Darren Marr, and I'm delighted to be joined to my left, right, to my right, my Fionn, and
You're
to my
right,
left.
the audience
I am.
left, everyone else is upside
Yeah,
down. People in
this
Australia
mirror
think
image is
upside
not
down.
working for me right here. Lads, how are we? Good.
Good, doing well.
Yeah. Excellent stuff. We've had a enthralling championship weekend. We now know our two Super Bowl competitors. It is the Kansas City Chiefs going up against the San Francisco 49ers, and I'm sure we are going to be talking about both games. Just before we do move on, I should say thank you to everyone that tuned into the show last week. Obviously, having to talk about the situation with the North Dublin Pirates. If you haven't had the chance to watch that back yet, you can. It is just there on our YouTube channel, youtube.com. Just search Under Center Podcast. You'll see it there. Also, if you want to listen to the audio version of it, you can. That is Under Center Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. We're also live on Instagram tonight. If you want to watch us over there too, you can get some questions in. Otherwise, get your questions in on the live YouTube feed, and we'll do our best to answer them over the next 40 to 45 minutes or so. But lads, I guess we were going to start with the championship games, but some news broke in the last hour or so in the head coach carousel, and it's quite appropriate that us three are on it, considering they involve our teams. That is, of course, the news that Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson will not be taking a head coaching job this offseason. He has decided that he wants to stay in Detroit and, quote, win a Super Bowl there. Fionn, your initial reaction to the news that Ben Johnson looks like he's not going to be taking up the head coaching role of either the Commanders or Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean, you would certainly argue. Obviously, my instinct is to scoff when he says I want to stay and win a Super Bowl with the Lions. But when you put it in the context as you just did, that last sentence you just said of whether to be the head coach of the Commanders or the Seahawks, it'd be hard to argue that the Lions aren't the most likely of those trio to win a Super Bowl anytime soon. So maybe there's some sense to what he's doing. The Lions played really well. I think sometimes a little bit of overhype with going to these head coaching jobs. It's a very dangerous job. We see plenty of lads not make it past 1 year and end up back down. And look, worst case scenario, you never end up with a high profile coaching job ever again after that if things go particularly south. Look at Bill O'Brien, who's now coaching in college football. Now he's no longer a head coach as well after what happened to him with the Texans. So yeah, I think it's interesting. I don't know a lot about this. Al is definitely our coaching guru on this podcast, but he was certainly one of the names that I heard most frequently, as you mentioned, with all the roles. So interesting decision, but we'll wait and see. As I said, in terms of winning a Super Bowl of the three teams he named, I think he picked the best one.
Al, first of all, congratulations. You are now our new head coaching expert on the show, to go with our cap expert as well. So first of all, congrats to that. But your reaction to the news that Ben Johnson won't be taking over with the Seahawks?
I don't know. I wasn't really all that enamored with Ben Johnson as a candidate.
Easy to say that now that he's not taking the job.
No, but same with Slowick. You know, the main thing, and I know it sounds, funny, but the main thing you need in a head coach is he's a leader of men. Neither of them strike me. They strike me as what's his name? Chargers just got fired. The head coach. Staley. Reminds me of Staley, both of them. I know different, position coaches before, but it just reminds me of him. Just absolutely no charisma at all, and that's I feel like someone like Mike McDonald would be a better fit. I'd almost prefer Dan Quinn, as uninspired as that hire would be. We've seen these offensive head coaches come through. They're really good coordinators and position coaches. When they get to, the head coaching gig, we've seen your Nathaniel Hackett's, we've seen your Arthur Smiths, and they're horrible head coaches. Good position coaches, good coordinators, bad head coaches. So I don't know. I didn't get the hype for him.
Mm-hmm. I understand what you mean. The timing for me was a little odd. Because he only had the Seahawks meet him in person yesterday, and they flew to Detroit to see him, and the Commanders were actually on their way in the air to Detroit to meet both him and defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. At which point he then told them that, yeah, pal, I'm not showing up for the interview. I'm not going to. I'm going to stay where I am, which is interesting.
I just remembered who he was interviewing for, and then he was like, "Oh yeah, shit." Yeah.
The weird thing about that is, like, these coaches tend to be under contract, right? So it's not like he's saying, "Oh no, the Lions have offered me a bomb now to stay on." Like, they just like, we think we've got a good package here. They don't. They're not offering him any extra money. It's not like a player in free agency where they're reneging on a deal because someone offered them more money. So. Yeah, interesting. I think he certainly took one look at that. I think a big problem the Commanders are going to have is how poor the facilities are. Like, that's all I just keep hearing is how poor the facilities are. And it's just not really good enough now. So hopefully they bought all that land. You remember a year ago or a couple of years ago, we thought we might get something spectacular, whether a new stadium or a new training facility. So I think that needs to happen pronto to make this kind of head coaching and also free agency a little bit more pain-free, let's say.
Yeah. Do you think that now the Commanders and Seahawks probably put all their chips into the Ben Johnson and Mike McDonald now in for them, and they are suffering because they were willing to wait for these guys to finish their respected seasons with their teams, hoping that they could grab one of them? Whereas we've seen all the other head coach hires now be done. And now that maybe who could have been a viable choice, whether that was a Raheem Morris, a Harbaugh, not Jared Mayo, obviously he was going to stay with the Patriots, and I'm trying to figure out who the rest of the ones are. Dave Canales, are the teams now going to suffer for waiting, where they would have thought maybe waiting was going to be the good thing to do before this news today?
I don't know. I mean, it's not like, as you said, they're not huge marquee guys, right? We're not seeing established head coaches here change positions. So I think anytime you spin the roulette wheel on the coordinators, you already talked about Dara, and as Al has said before, it's very hard to get a sense of whether these guys are leaders in the dressing room. And I guess they were the two big names that you just mentioned, Ben Johnson in particular, that a lot of teams had their eye on. So it's possible that both the Seahawks and the Commanders didn't really have their eye on any of those coaches, with the exception of maybe Harbaugh. He was quite a big name, but I never heard the Seahawks, and I definitely never heard the Commanders either try and get an interview or anything with Harbaugh. What did you hear anything on the Seahawks side, Al?
No, there was nothing, and I think I don't think they even tried. He'd be a horrible fit in Seattle.
So this is what I mean. So I think there's quite a lot of not good fits out of the names that are already taken for both of these teams. So if they did lose out, and I can see the argument, I thought they didn't lose out on every candidate, if that makes sense, because not every candidate's a good fit, and not every candidate would have been on every board. So
yeah. Okay, fair enough. That's grand. So I guess, like I said, Mike McDonald is the big name that's left out there. The popular name, you could say, that's left out there, still left to hire. Dan Quinn, I think, just finished his second interview with the Commanders as well today. Mike Vrabel is still out there as well. The interest in Bobby Slowick has seemed to have cooled now in the last few weeks. They still are meeting up with Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions. The Seahawks, on their side of things, I think it's Azira Evero, Mike Kafka, Dan Quinn. I think they're the main names as well that are still available that you could be interested in. But Al, for the Seahawks side, who would you be looking at now? And then Fionn, on your side, who would you be looking at on the Commanders?
Obviously McDonald. I think Evero is an interesting one. It's hard to tell because that Panthers roster was rough, so it's hard to tell, like, how good or bad of a job he did last year. But I think he's a good coordinator. I think he's an interesting one. Kafka, no, not for a head coach. He doesn't. Interest me at all, really. And like, as interesting as the offensive guys are, like Johnson and Slowick, they could come in and Super Bowl straight away. Like, you don't know. But I'm not all that interested. So it's pretty much McDonald and Evero. I like the defensive guys.
Fair enough, Fionn.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit last week, Dara. I think for me, the most interesting candidate on the commander side of things is Bieniemy, right? Because like the last 5 years, the guy has been a head coaching candidate all around the league and never got a gig. Then he got the gig in the Commanders, and now things start leaking out about how, as Al says, and quite often for all these guys, it's how do they manage the team and how do they come across to the team and as leaders. And the Commanders players did not appreciate his coaching style at the start. Now, those tended to go away as the season went on, whether that's just the media kind of lost interest in it because the Commanders weren't really going anywhere, or the players warmed up to him, or he changed his tack. Don't really know. But for me, he's the most interesting unknown that seemed to have all this hype behind him and is now faded away, probably in no small part because of the underperforming Commanders offense he was in charge of. But like I said to you guys, as a Commanders fan who watched it week in and week out for the last God knows how long, and specifically, let's say, over the last 3 seasons, the previous 2 were very boring, very vanilla on offense. And it didn't get spectacular. It didn't get Chiefs level offense this year, but it certainly looked a lot more difficult for defenses to deal with. They had to adapt. Now, clearly the record shows they did a pretty good job of it, but you know what I mean? It made the defense have to be a little bit more dynamic, have to develop a couple of threats. And well, the offensive line was poor, and that didn't help the pass or the run game. There was enough flashes here and there that with the right talent, it certainly looked dangerous on both sides. So I think that for me is one, especially as I said, I'm not huge on the coaches, to be honest. I can't list off a ream of 10 names of guys that are either interesting or even on the market. So for me, the number one name at the front of my mind at the moment is Bieniemy, obviously because I know it, and 2, because of all the hype that came with it, and kind of as it's kind of flatlined now. So look, I'm after filling 5 minutes there knowing nothing about coaching, but all to get out that admitting that Bieniemy is my number one name because he's the only name that I know. But at the same time, I do think there's some interest behind it. You know what I mean? There really was hype about this guy 5 years ago. There's not so much anymore. Is that totally gone? Or is it something worth exploring? I mean, what if the Commanders got to lose? Let's be honest.
Yeah, there's obviously something going on there where teams don't fancy Bieniemy because he's the last 3-4 years before moving over to Washington, every year he was a name that teams would interview for their head coaching gig. You'd think he was a shoo-in, obviously, with the success of the Chiefs. But he would never get the job, and someone else would get the job for one reason or another. So I don't know what it is.
And it can't be that hard-nosed style. Like, look, the Commanders are obviously in a difficult position over the last couple of seasons, and he obviously came in and decided, I'm going to go hard-nosed and try and get these guys to like get more physical and more tough, and the guys didn't like it. But those same stories never came out of the Chiefs, and now it's just because the Chiefs were winning, and it's hard to complain about a head coach or an offensive coordinator who's doing a good job, regardless of his personality style. We didn't hear that with the Chiefs, and so that's what leads me to believe it was probably more a frustration and quite a big sudden change in philosophy for the guys on the Commanders that caused that grading more than him coming across in interviews of being way too old school, way too abrasive, and teams kind of getting turned off on him in the interview process.
Yeah. Okay. I guess we'll move on then if we have nothing else. I guess we have a bit more breaking news today. Because, and if I just get it up here, there you go. Oh, thank you, Fionn. Ahead of the game. Arthur Smith is not out of work for too long because he's moving over to the Pittsburgh Steelers as their new offensive coordinator. Obviously a sort of backwards move in terms of head coaching ambitions, but I'm guessing you're going to have to take the medicine in this after the poor stint he had with the Falcons. Fionn, what do you think? Arthur Smith as the new Steelers offensive coordinator. I'm guessing he's going to try and turn Najee Harris into prime Derrick Henry.
Yeah, look, we kind of mentioned it at the top. Some of these guys never end up anywhere significant after that. And I think Arthur Smith is one of those guys who should be kind of lucky to have such a high profile job, at least literally the season after getting fired. So look, I think it's going to be interesting. I don't know if he was super dynamic as an offense coordinator. I always find it hard to sift out these guys' natural ability versus the squads that they had. You wouldn't argue that the Atlanta Falcons was particularly explosive, although they did do great stuff with Cordero Patterson. Some questionable calls on what's the running back's name that they drafted this year? Bijan Robinson.
Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, now he had some weird injuries and things, but it didn't sound straightforward to me, at least. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think he needs to come in. He needs to be clean. Steelers fans, I think, will take absolutely anybody over the amount of whinging they were doing about their offense this season. So to be honest, it's got to be an upgrade for them. Although what the rest of the league thinks, I'm not so sure.
Al?
Yeah, I think as long as they have a Pickett there, I don't know how much of an upgrade anyone can make. He's been horrible. I mean, when Mason Rudolph comes in and like outperforms you by a wide margin, there's a problem there. Because Mason Rudolph is not a good quarterback.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I think they've all decided that they're not going with Pickett. Well, at least I hope they have it as the future. I think that the fact that they were able to get more out of Mason Rudolph in those games that Pickett was out, and when Pickett came back, he was still able to hold on to his place. So I think that they are one of the teams looking to either pick up a free agent. A lot of rumors about Russ, if he turns down the Commanders, of course, or drafting a quarterback as well. So we will wait and see with that. But let's see what Arthur Smith as OC in Tennessee was quite good. He was very good, obviously good enough to get him the head coaching job. So maybe going back and just reevaluating things and will help. But we'll just have to wait and see with of course what they're going to do in that quarterback room. Let's have a quick chat about the NFC Championship game from the weekend. Of course, the Detroit Lions blow a 24-7 lead against the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers make it to the Super Bowl, like we mentioned earlier, to go up against the Chiefs. I'm sure you've heard a lot of reactions to the game itself. On the outside of things, we'll have a little chat about it. But lads, before I do move on to that, is there any part of the game that you want to have a quick chat about?
No, look, other than the fact that it was the late game, so I didn't see a whole lot of it. But I think the Lions, like Gardner Johnson, needs to really check himself. Like, why are you doing waving to fans at halftime in the NFC Championship game? Like, that's just asking for trouble.
As soon as I saw that, I thought in my head,
that's a terrible decision.
That's not the thing to do. It's just not.
Yeah. How do you go out acting like that and then not score a single point in the second half? And then, until the decisions as well. Time.
Well, look, that's the thing. That's the thing, right? These teams kind of play scared after they get a lead. Do you know what I mean? You go from what was working really well for you in the first half to be like, let's just not blow it in the second half. And you'd be surprised how many, like, it's got to be 8 times out of 10 that mentality always comes back to burn you. Like, you just gotta take your points, keep the scoreboard ticking over. I mean, Dan Quinn has spoken about this, that he doesn't regret it, but in hindsight, obviously, he'd take the points. But I think that's a maturity thing, right? You don't feel confident with where you are. You think you're fluking it, and so you feel that pressure to make sure you keep the big points coming instead of just chipping away. I mean, like those two scores gives you a little bit of a buffer. Like if you have one bad drive, all you got to do is hold them out of the end zone, and suddenly you've got that kind of 3-point buffer where if they kick a field goal, it's not catastrophic. And look, it's always easy to point back to the scoreline at the end of the game, but the reality is, how often do these games come down to 3-point margins? So if you can kick a 3-point field goal twice instead of going for a fourth down, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, or
but again,
catch a really easy interception at the end zone
instead of headbutting it back to the wide receiver for him.
Like Purdy has God on his side. That's the only way. Or Shanahan sold his soul to the devil. Like this isn't just normal stuff. That isn't the first time we've seen that. He overthrows a ball, it bounces off the defender into the offense guy's hands. I'm not kidding. It's happened 2 or 3 times this year.
That's because Purdy throws his deep balls like the punters do, and he puts opposite spin on it so that the wide receiver or the cornerback goes to try and catch it and it bounces off his helmet. Everybody knows it's a classic. It's a classic.
Vet move. Vet move.
Yeah. Maybe the defenses, the safeties need to practice the old sphincter catches that worked so well for the Panthers.
Yeah. Now, just jumping back to those fourth down plays. I look, in hindsight, obviously you say, yeah, stupid calls should keep the scoreboard ticking over. But, especially for one of them, and there was another catch later on that Craig Reynolds should have got. Like that they were 2 illegitimate drops. They're not that hard of a catch. Catch the ball. I'm going to go like full Richard Sherman now, like, catch the ball, catch the damn ball. But no, it's what you paid for, man. You have to catch those footballs, especially in that, in that environment, in that game to keep it going, because like it was a fantastic first half, absolutely brilliant by the team.
Can we also mention as well, Gardner Johnson talking about Debo in the media, and he's like, yeah, you're just a running back, like you can't catch the ball, you're not a wide receiver. And then Samuel leads the 49ers in the game with nearly 100 yards receiving.
Of
like
all
it's
the
just
players,
an absolute backbreaker.
You might as well just say that about Christian McCaffrey, like, he's just a running back. Like, no, he's probably the best offensive player in the league. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to win Offensive Player of the Year or MVP, but he should win both.
Yeah.
Why are you saying Tyreek is going to win Offensive Player of the Year?
I thought, to be honest, I said that just to get the kind of the reaction. I actually don't know who's going to win Offensive Player, but he's definitely should win MVP, and he's not going to, because the fact is they will never give it to a quarterback for the rest of the.
He might now because Lamar laid an egg.
He might. But
no,
the whole team. Before this. The whole team did, but Lamar,
these things are voted for at the end of the regular season. It doesn't matter about the playoffs. They're voted at the regular season.
Which is why Dak Prescott gets in every year, because no one's like, well, surely he can't bottle it in the playoffs again this year.
Yeah. But in a wider context for the Lions, I don't know about you, but I am already hitting the worry button for next year for them.
Dan
just
Quinn's
because
who's? Dan Quinn's.
What about that?
Or Dan Campbell, I mean. Sorry, Dan Campbell.
Dan Campbell.
Comments. Yeah. This was it. This was our only shot. Oh, great. Thanks, coach. Yeah,
not even that. Not even that. It was just the manner of the defeat. Like, you had the Super Bowl not the Super Bowl itself, but an appearance in the Super Bowl right there at halftime. And like, this wasn't we made it to the NFC Championship, we lost by a field goal or a touchdown, we stayed in it the whole game. It just wasn't to be our day. No, this was, you had the game won. All you had to do was go blow for blow with San Francisco and don't do anything stupid. And then in the space of that third quarter, you just lose everything you've gained. That's demoralizing, that defeat, because you have to stew on that for the next 6 months.
It's
and think about what you could have done for the next 6 months. I already worried for them next year that it might be a hangover that can seep into next season's team.
Certainly, but it's one of these things, right? If you can start getting to the playoffs now next year and even get another playoff win, whatever that looks like, then you start to have confidence. But it goes back to like the likes of the Chiefs that are just have this confidence, and the Lions weren't confident, and they should have been. But they knew, even when they were 17 points ahead, they knew, and they played like they were lucky to be where they were. And I don't mean that by like some plays went the way, but San Francisco walked into that game and they said, we are a better football team than the Lions. And I think the Lions walked into that game and said, the 49ers are a better football team than us. And when they got 17 points ahead, they played like they were like, oh crap, we just need to keep our necks ahead, instead of switching the mentality to go, we've got these guys, let's bury them now. Let's keep our foot on the accelerator. We know what's working. Let's, as you said, let's react to whatever their changes are at halftime, because every NFL team comes out in the second half totally different. And I think they just lost their nerve. And it's that belief of, no, we're genuinely in the lead here versus, oh, we've managed to find a lead from somewhere, some things broke our way, or we're just playing all guns blazing. But they never truly believed they were going to win, or they could win that game against the 49ers. And I think that's what, in the end, let the 49ers catch back up. The 49ers knew this is a playoff game. We win loads of playoff games. We're a great football team. The Lions were like, oh, aren't we doing fantastic to be where we are right now? Which is just not a good enough attitude, I think.
Yeah, I think just the moment was too big for them. You know, the Niners were as confident as anyone. They knew they were supposed to be there, and the Lions just couldn't keep up with that. I mean, just some of the decisions as well, like the fourth down calls or whatever, but you're 3rd and 12 and you run the ball and then you go for it on 4th and 1. You're like playing super conservative and then super aggressive, like plays apart. You just don't know what to do with yourself. Go for it on 3rd down, and then if you don't make it, take the fucking points. If they had taken one of those field goals, they go to overtime and get another chance to win the game. But they just didn't know what to do with themselves, and they tried being cute rather than just taking what was in front of them. And then, they started to, get a bit scared, and you could tell, like, with some of the drops and some other mistakes, like, and then you could just see, like, near the end of that game, they were just gone. No energy, flat. They knew they were beat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just for myself, I tend to err on the side of maybe the moment too big. I'd understand if the moment was too big for them if they got blown out. I don't know if it was overconfidence and complacency that creeped in on the team.
Maybe we have to admit that Purdy's just a beast, and he just destroyed
them
in the second half.
I have
he just game managed them out of the game.
No, he's not a game manager. Like, he's better than a game manager. But, like, again, like, he's not the reason. He's not the guy. He's not the guy elevating that team. He's fine. He's good. He's better than Garoppolo. He's not a game manager. He's a good quarterback. But, like, look at some of the throws. Like, his receivers having to jump fucking 10 feet in the air to catch some balls. That one absolutely should have been intercepted. That would have changed the game completely. And, like,
do you think they would have still picked up that flag if it was intercepted?
No, but that wasn't pass interference. I mean, they would have called it, but it wasn't.
I think nonetheless,
the defender was coming back to play on the ball. The receiver ran into him. It's not pass interference. It's just
that's always called though. That's always called.
I
think
the reason
absolutely. I agree. It's always called. I agree. It's always called, which is bullshit, and it shouldn't be called.
Either way, even if he intercepted that ball, it wouldn't have mattered because it still would have gone down as pass interference. So they still would have got the ball there.
Catch the ball, I know it would have gone down there, but you never know.
I'll tell you one thing.
The easiest interception in the world, please.
I'll tell you one thing with all this Purdy slander / bashing. The Seahawks will never win their division as long as Brock Purdy is the quarterback of the 49ers, and I guarantee that.
I
So,
can't
Let's
wait
see who
pick
gets
that up.
head
for
coach
him
before
to
you
come
make
back down to earth. You know how many interceptions he's pretty much thrown, and defenders have just gone and forget how
matter.
to catch.
Doesn't matter. You guys are famous for Rick
every
Woolen
week.
disappeared. Your new guy this year, he's going to be gone too. And
Rick Woolen
49ers
just
are
forgot
going
how
to
to tackle.
cruise that. He's going to cruise that division for the next 6-7 years. Just wait till they pay him like $250 million.
He's just.
I'll tell you, I honestly believe
I
that.
love the
believe
fact that
he's-
you're getting right up close to the camera saying, you know that Brock he's going to keep winning that.
Come here.
He's better than the Seahawks. What? Say that again. Sorry, I didn't hear that. Say that.
I can't. We're not doing an ASMR show. That's a whole different. Watch the viewers spike.
If you were a 49ers
That's a paywall.
fan, talk your shit. But from a Commanders fan?
No. You're saying
now.
that as a Seahawks fan. The rest of the league will agree with me that as long as Purdy's quarterback, you guys have no hope of winning that division. He's just better than you on his own. Debo, McCaffrey, doesn't matter.
We'll see. That team is better than us, and they will be. They will be.
And
for a
he
while.
is the team. He is the team.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not because of Purdy. It will never be because of Purdy.
Right, maybe we should go to the neutral AFC ground. Should we, Darren?
Let's talk about the AFC and Chiefs make it to another Super Bowl. The prospective MVP this year, Lamar Jackson, throws multiple eggs in a baffling offensive performance by the Ravens, only scoring the one touchdown in the first half. Of course, Zay Flowers dropped one in the end zone too. But the fact that, and everyone has talked about it, and I agree that it's absolutely crazy that the game plan for the best rushing team in the league was to not rush the ball, just sounds absolutely stupid to me. And look, listen, I'll hold my hand up. I know a bit of football. I don't know as much as these coaches will probably ever know. But not running the ball when you're the best running offense in the league, it's in the AFC Championship, screams a little to me of Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll in the Super Bowl, where Russ wants to throw the ball and have all the glory instead of just giving it to Marshawn on the 1 yard line.
Yeah, and you got to be even more disappointed as well when you hold the Chiefs to 17 points. That's a beatable number if you can get any kind of offense going. It really looked like to me they had no offensive plan. They didn't know what they needed to do. Like you said, it's baffling as well that the game wasn't run the ball. But also even throwing the ball, it's like they weren't expecting the Chiefs to put them under pressure. It was like, oh, well, they're just expecting us to run so much that every pass is going to be wide open. And when it wasn't, there was no real adjustment. There was no quick slants. There was no screens that Al absolutely hates. But when you're getting pressure, that's the best way to slow those pass rushes down and get everybody moving left to right. And they just didn't seem to do it for the entire game. Whatever about the first half, those adjustments never came to the second half either. That was really weird to me. They didn't know what needed to happen. It wasn't like they were misfiring. It didn't look like their plan was there, that they knew what the Chiefs were vulnerable to and what they were trying to get to. It'd be a different story if they were trying these screens and the receivers were dropping and Lamar was off. But to me, you guys are saying he didn't. I thought he had a perfectly fine game. The scheme wasn't very good. He wasn't very open and he was kind of running around a lot. Of course, he dropped the ball as he always does because he runs around with the ball basically balanced on one finger. But to me, the thing that really stood out was the whole offense didn't know where it was trying to get to, didn't know where the vulnerability was or what the game plan was in terms of opening up the Chiefs offense. And that really is what cost them in the end.
Yeah. They just seemed to have a plan. And when that didn't work, they just did not know what to do. They just kind of stood there scratching their head, trying to figure out what to do. And then when that didn't work, they got frustrated and started doing stupid shit. Zay Flowers cost them about 50 yards in the space of a minute. Like that taunting. That was the tauntiest taunting that ever taunted. Like,
and it's so stupid for whatever reason, for me, it stands out more that it's in your own stadium. Everybody's already cheering you. Just go and hype the crowd up. Like, taunting is for when you're in the opposition's stadium and you're like shutting up the crowd and you're like, yeah, stay down. You're trying to be all tough. Everyone was on your side. In fact, you should have scored a touchdown. What are you flexing for? Like, you should have been gone. He caught you. But anyway, sorry, I interrupted.
And then no, it's grand. And then fumbling in the end zone. First of all, can't
do it.
Don't fucking jump if it's not third or fourth down. Or even if it's third down, don't jump. Just get the yards that you can, tuck the ball, and if you don't get across the line, that's fine. Let someone run it across the line or whatever. Also, the fumble touchback rule is the best rule in football. Don't change it. Shut up. Honestly.
Look, you're not going to find an argument here. You're not.
The thought of rewarding the offense for fumbling out of the end zone, like, it's really, it's strict, it's harsh on the offense. The league has become tailored to the offense. Yeah. Why the fuck do you want to do it more?
At that point, you're telling the defense, let's just not tackle inside the 5-yard line. Like, if they get to the 5-yard line, you're just not allowed to tackle with your arms anymore. Like, that's the whole point, right? You're trying to get that ball out. And if you get that ball out close to the line, even if it's the defender reaching, I mean, ironically, Zay Flowers did the right thing. He wasn't like spread eagle Superman trying to get the ball in there that inevitably leads.
Like, he had his
like you said, when you're diving, that thing's got to be took. I mean, he did everything else. He protected himself. He just didn't protect the ball. And like, in fairness, great play by the defender as well. I don't remember whose hand it was that got in. The same fella, wasn't it? The same fella who got absolutely roasted that he gave the taunting on for being blown coverage over the top. But like, what a way. Hey, if you're gonna taunt Dan as Snead, get up and go, you little bum, you nearly had a chance to win the game and you couldn't do it. So
and then there was the defensive lineman basically punching Mahomes in the helmet and then being like, I didn't do anything. Like, just a series of the Ravens punching themselves in the face constantly and then wondering why their face hurts.
But I mean, that's not like that wasn't Lamar. Do you know what I mean? That was stuff outside of his control.
I said, like, Lamar definitely deserves his own slice of the blame pie, but like so does pretty much everyone else in that offense. The defense played well enough to win them that game. You know, you're playing Mahomes, he's gonna score on you. But
the big problem for Lamar is that when they get in those situations, like the game plan seems to be like, oh well, Lamar's just gonna do something. Like, he's just gonna make something happen, and then that leads him to play under pressure. I feel like he doesn't play great under pressure, and I don't mean in the big games. I mean when he's like, he has to make something happen is when he doesn't play well. When he sees something and kind of instincts and goes, that's when he does the most damage. But when he's like, oh, I'm just gonna try and find a way to escape here, it never goes well. But when he just kind of finds a gap and goes for it, that always works out way better. So maybe that's something that they need to kind of steer him away from in the future. But you got to hold the ball as well. Didn't he have a fumble? I'm pretty sure he had a fumble.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
It's every time. And look, that first touchdown is exactly why you get it, right? Because he buys all that time. He dodges 3 clear sacks, and then he throws a touchdown. And if you want those touchdowns, you're going to get the loads of sacks and the dodgy tackles. And now he shouldn't be holding the ball in one hand anyway, but I mean, they're going to happen if you want to get the Lamar that makes those touchdowns as well. So I don't know. I have a bit of sympathy for the Ravens fans. I don't know what you kind of prefer. Would you prefer like a muzzled Lamar Jackson, or would you prefer a free and easy guy who, look, he's going to make as many mistakes as he makes unbelievable plays?
Yeah, but like, you're saying free and easy, but you know, I guess that's what it is. Like, I guess the same criticism that's put towards Purdy in terms of being a game manager, you could say, was kind of like that against Lamar, because when he was forced to try and chase the game, he struggled. Like that interception, throwing it into triple coverage. That's a rookie mistake. I know it's the AFC Championship. I know you're trying to get your team back in the game, but that's triple coverage, man. Come on.
Yeah.
That's,
I mean, look,
and I know Ravens fans are trying to give out saying, "Oh, it's still pass interference, even though it was in triple coverage." It's like,
It wasn't a catchable ball, so it's not pass interference.
Yeah.
He threw it like fucking 7 yards that way.
The clock didn't help either. Do you know what I mean? Where he was kind of, not only was he pushing to get a score, he was pushing to do it quick. So I think that really affected. But look, it's as you said there, it's a bit of a rookie move. It's the one you don't want to see, and it's the one that really killers never seem to make. Do you know what I mean? They always find that outside guy who stops the clock. They just keep moving. You just can't see that the defense is lined up on the first down marker, and he just, every time, he just seems to be able to get another first down, stop the clock, check it. And that's what some of these guys just don't have the patience to be able to do, and it's what set the guys apart, I think.
Yeah. This is an interesting comment. Are we in danger of a Chiefs Mahomes domination like the Patriots Brady partnership for the next 10 years? It's
at least this year.
We have to be
as long as they win this year.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
I just saw the stats. He basically has identical stats to the first equivalent time period of Brady. Brady had 3 Super Bowls or 2 Super Bowls from
Brady had 4, didn't he?
No, I think he had 3. 3 from
Mahomes
3, and Mahomes has got to 4 Super Bowls and has won 2. So if he wins this one, he would have had more Super Bowl appearances and the same amount of Super Bowl wins. The man is a freak. I think we are. And you know what? I don't think it's... I mean, Kelsey's a fantastic player, and I think we saw an absolute stud game from him as well. Like, he had all the attention on him, and he still always seems to find a way to be 100 yards during the game. But I do believe Mahomes can do this without Kelsey. Like, he's done it with and without run games. He's done it with and without Tyreek Hill. I mean, the man's incredible. I don't understand how he can do it. It's almost like it's what players like Lamar Jackson are trying to be, where it's that very delicate balance of being uncontainable, but also, if you do manage to, he's not ever trying to do more than what you're giving him. He's not trying to catch lightning in a bottle. If he goes, he goes. And if he doesn't, he finds somewhere to put the ball and he lives for another down.
Yeah. I think as well, and look, it's, you don't want to be comparing saying who is going to have who has the better trajectory, who's having the better career. But, you know, if you think to the Brady time, especially when he was in that AFC, yes, there was Manning, who they had great battles with. With Mahomes, he hasn't got that one quarterback he's having a great battle with, because he's beaten every single fucking one of them. And it's like no trouble to him. I'd love to see, you know, like Burrow obviously beat him. He's one of the only quarterbacks to beat him in the playoffs. I'd love to see someone step up and just, you know, take shot for shot with Mahomes and sort of make a battle out of it. But yeah, it's like the similarities are crazy as well. Obviously, with Mahomes, Brady, you know, you talk about like their tight end weapons. You can talk about the head coach itself. They've been around the league for a long time, and it's been, now obviously I don't think Andy Reid is going to be hanging around the Patriots for about 20 years, but
here's another interesting question in line with Brogan's question. If Andy Reid has 2 Super Bowls now, the same 2 that Mahomes has, if he manages to stick around for as long as the Brady-Belichick partnership goes, do we give him the same credit that everyone was given Belichick pre the split between Brady? If they continue to go on, if he matches Belichick's 6 Super Bowl wins, do we throw flowers at him, or do we say, yeah, but clearly Mahomes is a better athlete than Brady is, and therefore Reid doesn't get the same amount of credit as Belichick did back in the day when he was with the Patriots and Brady was still there?
Well, I'll put it this way. I think you would give Andy Reid the flowers, because I don't think he's going to be technically alive to have the same amount of years with the Chiefs as Belichick had with the Patriots. So if he does the 6,
hold on,
he's in his 60s at least.
65. He could do another 10 years. And that's only like,
What age is Pete Carroll? He was like 98 when he just retired this season. So like he could have another 20 years.
Fionn, he was 98 when he started with the Seahawks.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think he's going to get like the 20. Is it 20 years or 20 something years anyway? So that means if he does the same six Belichick, he would have done it in less time. So yeah,
less time. But I would argue if for me, Brady's the best quarterback because ultimately the job is win Super Bowls. He's the one who's won the most Super Bowls. But if Mahomes matches him, I think then it's no contest that Mahomes is the greatest quarterback ever. If he can match the Super Bowls, he's definitely a better football player than Tom Brady ever was.
Are we going to get into a territory of?
Well, here's right. So
of who's Mahomes, better, MJ or LeBron? It's going to be
Brady, I think we are because if Mahomes gets 6 and Brady has 7, but Mahomes is clearly a better like athlete than Brady was. I think you do get into an MJ and LeBron type scenario of just what's your preference, style or something.
You're never going to be able to compare them. They're two completely different players. 2 completely different athletes with 2 completely different playing styles. One's going to have more stats here. One's going to have more stats there. I mean, if anyone can, get 7 rings, it's Mahomes.
Look, if Mahomes doesn't go around kissing his kids on the lips like Tom Brady, he would get my vote as best player ever.
And as to like, do we give Reed the flowers or Mahomes? I think it's the same as, in the Patriots. I don't think, either if they do get to that point of 6 or 7 rings, I don't think either does it without the other. I don't think Belichick wasn't the reason. Brady wasn't the reason. They just worked really well together for a really long time until they didn't. And that's it. Tom Brady seemed to be more a part of it because he just like immediately won a Super Bowl with the Bucs. But I think who was better is or who had more of an impact is over 20 years is a silly debate.
The only thing we can say is who's the greatest Irish NFL based podcast, and it's got to be Under Center podcast. And I don't think there's any debates about that. I think that's a done deal. We should be in the Hall of Fame or whatever.
Would you rather be the MJ or would you rather be the LeBron then?
I'd rather be LeBron. He has so much more money than MJ. Oh, actually, no. MJ owns Air Jordan, though. If you're going to give him that bit, then maybe.
Oh, yeah.
maybe we want to be MJ. I just want the money, man. We're like.
Well, is it playing money or like retirement money? If it's playing money, then LeBron. But if it's retirement money, then MJ all day.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want my 10-part documentary series on my podcasting career done by Netflix that we all watch in lockdown. So I'm going to go with MJ. What's yours going to be
called? The Last Chicken Wing?
Big fucking talk from a guy who thinks he can play SBC now.
Yeah, I think I can.
You think I can? Go to one training session. Goes to one training session and is already a fucking arrogant arsehole. Well, actually, no, you always were.
That's true.
But yeah. Anyway, I think that's a good place to wrap up this edition of the show. Al, thank you so much. Fionn, you can go fuck yourself.
You're very welcome.
Before we go, make sure you are following us on our socials at UnderCenterPod on Twitter and Instagram. If you like the show and you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel for all the latest NFL leading up to the Super Bowl. And then, of course, we'll be switching over to the AFI side of things as the Irish League season begins. And hopefully we can get some good guests on the show for the next couple of weeks and months. Maybe a couple of extra shows in that too, maybe focusing on the actual divisions rather than a grander show trying to fit everything in. But look, listen, that's all to come down the pipeline. Still plenty of time for that. But until next time, stay safe and we will see you soon.